Trying to keep notes on timing here as well. So, all right, we are live and on air. Oh, perfect. It's 10:20.
Sweet.
All right. Welcome back. FF Dynasty 260 proudly presents episode 15 of the Redraft Podcast. This week, we are recapping week 12. Pat is out tonight, so I'll be stepping in as your host. I am the at-home dad, and you can find me on Twitter at FF the at-home dad. And tonight, I'm being joined by Mike and John. So, Mike, tell the people where they can find you.
You guys can find me on Twitter at MikeSports22. Got all kinds of content coming out like every week. John, tell the people where they can find you at.
John McGlenn, you can find me on the Twitter machine at meathead_75. Rough week for me this week. My son lost in the 8A high school championship. Otherwise, high school lost a heartbreaker to Loyola to end his senior season in football. That's my favorite on bad this week.
Oof.
See, I'm upset about my made up fantasy teams, and you actually have real.
They went undefeated. They went their freshman, sophomore, and senior season went completely undefeated, and they lost their last game, which was the championship game in the 8A Illinois State Championship game to Loyola, which was tough.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty impressive that you made it all the way there. So hopefully you'll be able to get a nice little college run with some people looking at them and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and just make sure everybody knows what our main Twitter handle is. You can find all of us at FFD260. We put out tons of content, lots of news, everything you need as the week progresses and beyond. And we're going to jump into some player news with some injuries, which is always a sad part of the week. I'm going to go with what hurts the most first. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. Melvin Gordon is probably done for your fantasy season. And it hurts a lot. Melvin Gordon, he has an MCL sprain. It's a grade 2 MCL sprain, which we talked about in the very beginning of the season. We talked about it in the middle of the season. There's he's now the third big name guy that we're talking about having the same issue with a grade 2 MCL sprain, which is actually a slight tear in the MCL. Which some people can get by with only a couple of weeks, but it is going to be at least a couple of weeks, if not 3 to 4, if he's even coming back at 100%. So if you have Melvin Gordon, hopefully you have Austin Ekeler, or hopefully you have some kind of parachute on your bench, because otherwise – you're falling from glory fast, and it's not the fall that kills you, it's the sudden stop at the end. So fellas, anything about Melvin Gordon here?
I wouldn't expect him to be back this year, combined with, like you said, the couple week injury. Some guys may be able to bounce back sooner than others, but given how important he is to the team's long-term success and the fact that they are kind of locked into that number 5 wildcard spot, I would fully expect the Chargers to just sit him down for the rest of the year and have him ready to go for a playoff run.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. You got Austin Ekeler, Jackson. You might as well use what you got on the bench for a couple weeks while you're in the driver's seat. You got plenty of other weapons on the team to use while he gets healthy.
So real quick, impromptu bet. Who has more touches this week? Because I hear a lot of people going back and forth. Who has more touches this week? No explanation. Pick a guy. Justin Jackson, Austin Ekeler. Who has more touches in that Chargers backfield?
Austin Ekeler.
Yeah, I'd say Ekeler. Although if the game gets out of hand early or whatever.
We said no explanation. Which was great, because whenever Pat does this, I'm always the one that talks the most afterwards. I'm gonna be contrarian then. I'm gonna go Justin Jackson. I actually think I think Austin Ekeler kind of showed a little bit earlier in the season that they don't really want to give him 20 touches. He doesn't hold up well to it. So I think they're gonna I think it's gonna be a very close to 50 split, if not leaning a little bit Jackson's way.
I agree with that. I agree 100% that it'll be a lot closer than people think, but I just think Ekeler will do a lot more with the touches he has.
Yeah. All right. That's why we didn't bet on fantasy points. All right. Moving on. Some guys that are done for the year officially. Andy Dalton on IR with torn thumb ligaments, which is kind of important for a quarterback to be able to hold on to a football. Jeff Driscoll had a nice game kind of in his absence. John, you wanted to talk a little bit about good old Red Rifles backup?
Yeah, I don't project much. They're playing Denver this week, which is 7th against the pass. I don't expect much out of him this week. But he is someone that if you're in a super flex or a 2-quarterback league, he's going to be there the rest of the year. So it's worth a pickup, worth some of your fab budget, worth one of your next waiver bid. I'd go out of my way to pick him up if I was in a even a super flex, but definitely a 2-quarterback league.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Stop cutting me off, Mike. No, go ahead.
You and I keep doing this. It's crazy, but I agree with what John's saying there. People are going to say, well, him versus the other guy we're going to go over in a minute here. And I think it's clearly Driscoll because he has the job. Dalton's done. There's nothing to do about it. And this Bengals team is still, while maybe not mentally in the playoff race, mathematically they're still in. So 2 QB super flex, go pick them up.
Yeah, I just feel like the Bengals at this point they're essentially going to pack it in. You might get a couple good games out of Driscoll just because he's trying to get somebody to look at him, to trade for him, sign him some kind of contract, deal, extension, whatever. But I mean, you have AJ Green that people are talking about just not coming back. Now Andy Dalton's not going to come back. Mixon and Driscoll are going to carry the team. That just doesn't seem very appealing to me.
No, you might get some garbage time production out of him though if you're in a bind, but it's a long shot bet at best.
Yeah. Does this hurt Tyler Boyd? I mean, it's going to hurt him some. Is that going to hurt Tyler Boyd to the point where he falls from his potential wide receiver 1 numbers that he's putting up every now and then?
Yeah,
I didn't count him as a wide receiver 1 anyway. So Boyd is more of a mid-range wide receiver 2 at best for me. So I don't really, I didn't expect much from him. Someone's got to throw the ball and someone's got to catch the ball. So that's just the way it is. Boyd and Ross will get tons. Your Uzama might get a couple more throws too, but they're probably going to lean on Mixon.
Yeah, I don't think Boyd's going to be anywhere near what he was doing. You're probably talking a flex player at this point at best. And their schedule the rest of the way out after this week is not very pretty either. So,
yeah. All right. Another guy out for the season now officially, Marvin Jones. They put him on IR with the knee injury. I mean, I feel like we saw that kind of happening a little bit there. One that we didn't kind of see happening was Jack Doyle. Suddenly out with a kidney issue. From what I saw, it just said that he had a procedure done on his kidney, and he should be fine, but he is done for the season. So my boy Ebron, so excited. Sticking with the Colts, though, this game, Marlon Mack also went out with a concussion. It's unknown right now kind of where he's at. Hopefully by the time you listen to this pod, we might have a little bit more information, but definitely somebody to pay attention to because this could be maybe a Nyheim Hines, Jordan Wilkins firing up, even though they're going up against a pretty stingy Jacksonville defense. Any thoughts on those guys before we move on?
No, not really. I'll touch on Mac a little bit more later, but it's always concerning when you see a player getting a concussion because they always react differently to it. Some guys, clear the protocol right away, and some guys take 2-3 weeks to do so. So definitely keep your eye on the injury report and see what happens.
Yeah, they're playing a number 2 running defense this week anyway. So, I don't know what's going to happen with them, but I don't expect much from anybody on the team.
Yeah. And just real quick, one last piece of injury news. Joe Flacco's still out with the hip. This is a really interesting kind of situation where the Ravens may keep Flacco out just because Lamar Jackson is kind of exciting to watch play. And they're doing all right with him. So as long as Lamar Jackson isn't losing them games and Joe Flacco isn't practicing, they're probably going to keep Flacco out and leave Lamar Jackson in. So that could be fun to see what happens there. Into other news, Blake Bortles. They finally got the hook out, ripped him off the stage. But their only replacement act was Cody Kessler. Anything here, guys? I mean, is there an impact? Is this like long term? Does this help anyone anywhere?
Only if you're playing an owner who has Blake Bortles and has been MIA. But other than that, no.
Yeah.
No, they just have to make some kind of change. That whole organization is a mess, from the coaching to the locker room to the players to everything back and forth. There's nothing going to change. Just changing a quarterback isn't going to solve any problems in Jacksonville. It's a bad situation.
Yeah. And sticking with Jacksonville, their one bright spot, even though I was dropping him down a little bit last week, he actually had a good game until he went full fisticuffs with one of the Bills players. I'm talking about Leonard Fournette. He's suspended for one game. He is appealing it. I personally don't think that he's going to avoid this one game suspension. I think he's definitely going to get suspended for it. I mean, it literally stopped the game for what felt like forever. But I think it was like 5 minutes where not only were the two guys actually involved in the play, the wide receiver and the cornerback, that were like fighting for the ball for like 5 minutes afterwards. Like Leonard Fournette and who was it? Shaq Lawson. Yeah. They like weren't involved in the play at all and just started throwing punches with helmets still on, by the way, which just makes no sense to me
at all. Yeah. I doubt it's going to get overturned. By the time you guys hear this, there'll be a ruling on his appeal, but I doubt it's going to get overturned. The NFL is going to want to show that they are serious about this nonsense fighting, especially like you said, had nothing to do with the play whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And they're also, if they're going to look at the politic angle of it, Jaguars are the playoff picture. The Colts are probably going to win either way. You know what? Let's make a stand here and suspend Fournette, showing, hey, even our star players, we don't have no tolerance for this nonsense. So don't bank on having Fournette this week either.
Yeah. So my dropping him, I meant for this week when I was dropping him down last week.
You're a week early.
Yeah. Yeldon back up. I would say fire him up. Colts defense is, definitely a lot better than people thought they were going to be. But I could see Yeldon having a halfway decent game out of this one. What do you guys think about that?
I got a pretty split between Yeldon and Carlos Hyde. I think they're both going to handle the ball about the same. I don't see a difference there. I don't favor any of them. Maybe Yeldon a touch more, but that's it.
Yeah, both guys are a risk because you don't know how the breakdown's going to go. Since they acquired Hyde, they've had one game where Fournette's been out, and that was Hyde's first game. It was kind of fluky and everything else. PPR, you obviously want Yeldon because of the catch-up side. Standard, you probably want Hyde because of the goal line work. Half point, you probably want Hyde given the fact that the Colts are probably going to be ahead and Jaguars are going to be a negative game script. And with Cody Kessler's noodle arm, we're going to see a lot of check down stuff. So give me Yeldon. I kind of want to fade Hyde this week.
Nice. All right, so we're going to do something brand new, a little segment called Losing the Faith. So this is basically a guy that you actually have or had on your roster up until this point that you are just done with. You've completely lost faith. you're either cutting him this week, you're contemplating cutting him, or he's like somebody that you're like, oh, I need to cut him, but there's something that I just can't quite do it yet, even though I just have no faith left in him. So Mike, why don't you kick it off? Who is on your roster or started last week for you, or was on your roster last week that you just have lost the faith in?
Well, he was on my roster, and I started him, and it's frustrating as hell. Jarvis Landry. We all saw what he did last year in Miami and was impressed. Think he's going to go to Cleveland. Hopefully there'll be a better run organization with Baker in the fall, the running game, etc. And he has just totally been a ghost the last couple of weeks. Prior to the Hugh Jackson firing, the OC change, everything else, he was 13 points a game, had 2 touchdowns, 4 red zone targets. Pretty solid production, not wide receiver 1 stuff, but PPR is a low end wide receiver 2. Since the OC change, 7.1 points per game, 0 touchdowns, 1 lousy red zone target. They are focusing on the running game, getting Njoku back involved, Callaway starting to shine. The only reason I haven't dropped his ass yet is because it's a dynasty league and I need him. But in redraft leagues, it's getting to the point where it's like you're just going to have to drop him and hope that doesn't come back to bite you. However, his playoff schedule is semi-wide receiver friendly. So, yeah, it's a double-edged sword there. Frustrating, but you hope he turns around the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Wide receivers are just the worst for this type of thing because it's so much easier to lose faith in them when they just have that game where they're just not involved at all. And on that same vein, John, who are you losing the faith in?
Yeah, we're talking about not involved. When the season started, I had big expectations for Nelson Aguilar. He actually had pretty decent games to start the season. A couple 8, 9 catch games. Went down to 4 and 5. Then he got nothing but dink and dunk passes. 3 yards here, 4 yards there. He was getting a couple receptions, but nothing to show for it. And then as soon as the bye came, it was they got Golden Tate, and that was pretty much the nail in the coffin for Nelson Aguilar. Since then, he's really done nothing. The week when they got Tate, he got 5 for 83, 5 for 85, something like that. And then I think he got shut out the next game, and then just one last minute grab against the Giants. I think he's just going to be lost there. I thought maybe with the addition of Tate, with pushing Aguilar to the outside, he might get, instead of 4 or 5 3-yard catches like he was doing most of the season, he might get some long distance, maybe 10, 15, 20-yard catch on the outside, but they're not even looking at him anymore. So
yeah,
that's me.
It's a crowded wide receiver core now.
The whole offense is just falling apart. They aren't putting up points at all. The only catch he had was the critical 4th down catch against the Giants, nothing against New Orleans. So, yeah, you're right, John. It's become just totally just unbearable to even watch.
Yeah, even the quarterback play is not Carson Wentz isn't doing that good. He's got a lot of it. He's throwing an interception almost every game, if not every game. He's putting him in bad situations sometimes. He's not. He's kind of at a low point in his career right now. He was doing, I expect that to uptick sometime soon, hopefully, but he's not looking like the Carson Wentz that we all know.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But first, I'm going to jump into the guy that I'm losing. I've lost faith in. I literally put in my waiver claims, and he's my cut guy, and it's Jordan Howard. And I started the year so high on him, and it looked like he was going to be all right. And the fact that he's had a decent amount of touches in certain games, and then other games just fallen off completely. And most recently against the Lions, it's the Lions. Come on now. I mean, they did get better now that they have Snacks Harrison there, but I mean that's one guy, and he's only topped 4 yards per carry twice the entire season.
Yeah, it's Jordan Howard's one of those guys we drafted early on with confidence, and it just went sideways from there. They didn't even bother to run the ball against the Lions, despite not having Trubisky. So I've dropped him in my leagues too.
7 attempts. Seven attempts this past week.
Yeah. I totally expect him to get traded in the offseason. I just don't think he fits Nagy's offense. I think they like Cohen. They'll draft another guy who's, more adapt to that offense. It's just, it's time to put Howard on the waiver wire and redraft leagues, guys.
Which just doesn't make sense to me, though. Like I get Tyreek Cohen's skill set. I get that that's a valuable asset, but there's also something to be said that and I keep going back to this one concept. For literally every yard that he gains for your team, he's running more than almost everybody else in the entire league. That's not how you that's not efficient for a running back. That's not how you gain yardage. And that's why you see he has plays where literally he just destroys a drive because it's, 2nd and 6 and they get him something out on the perimeter, but instead of just dropping his shoulder running upfield, he turns back into the other side, tries to come back around. He ends up losing 10 yards because he's trying to dance the whole time. And it drives me crazy just as a football fan to watch Tyreek Cohen do this stuff and have to sit here and hear everybody say it that he just doesn't, that Jordan Howard doesn't fit Matt Nagy's offense, but this does. Dance around, lose 10 yards on certain plays that just kills a drive.
Being from Chicago and seeing Jordan Howard for the last couple of years, he doesn't fit this offense. He was a John Fox specialty. He had a fullback in front of him half time when Fox was in here with the run. Now he runs. It seems like the Bears' offensive line is not made for running the ball. They're a passing offensive line. People argue with that, say that they make room for Cohen, but Cohen's shifty. He can find the small holes where Howard needs a back in front of him and a good running start to plow through somewhere. He's a good short yardage back. He had a couple 1,000-yard seasons, but this is not the offense that Nagy wanted. They tried, the rumors were all over the place. They're trying to trade Jordan Howard in the offseason. I knew that was true, but they wouldn't admit they were trying to trade him. It was rumorville. Nobody bid on the bait. He does not fit this offense. He's got a real small contract, though. That's the problem. And he's a good, cheap backup for Cohen. He might be here for another year on this contract, just sitting here rotting away in this offense. I hope he gets traded the offseason to the Eagles or somebody else that can use a back like him. But I have a feeling because of his price and how cheap he is, he's not going anywhere next year either.
Yeah. And again, I completely get it. I get the whole argument about Cohen fitting the offense better, but it just drives me crazy to think you can't find a way to get Howard involved.
They do, and he doesn't do anything with it.
Yeah. They didn't in the Lions game.
Well, they didn't give anybody the ball in the Lions game. They ran the ball 18% of the plays at that. It's kind of like with DeMarco Murray a few years back when he went from Dallas to Philly. He went from a downhill running scheme to the East-West kind of nonsense. It just didn't work. Howard needs to be moved on. And with his contract, you're right, John, they don't have any incentive to move him because it doesn't cost them anything to keep him around as a backup. But they don't have many draft picks. They don't have a first or a second because of previous trades. So if somebody offers them a third or a fourth in a running back class that is mediocre probably, they should move him, and I think they will.
I hope so. For fantasy reasons and for the Bears reasons, because nobody wants to go to a Bears game and watch Jordan Howard get the ball 18 times for 43 yards, and everybody started to MF him and boom in the stands, and it's not fair to him that they don't have the offense set up. It's not fair to the Bears that they have to use him, to keep the guys somewhat happy. It's not fair to anything. It's just a clog in the offense.
Yeah, which is, again, I agree. I hope they trade him because I feel like he's not an elite back by any means, but he's talented enough where he should be doing more than what he's doing. And I have no choice but to agree with the fact that he doesn't fit into the scheme. Anyways, we ready to move on, guys?
Yeah, let's get moving.
All right. So let's jump into some quarterback play here. I know I just went on a little bit of a rant, but I'm going to make this a short one because this actually ties back to what John was just saying before with Nelson Aguilar and a little bit with that whole Eagles offense. The quarterback that I'm really questioning right now, and like he's almost a losing the faith type of guy for me right in the moment, is Carson Wentz. The Eagles just it was like they won that game against the Giants, but I really feel like the Giants just were like, wait a minute, we forgot the plan. We're supposed to be trying for a draft pick here, people.
Yeah.
Like Saquon, you have 150 all-purpose yards. You won my fantasy this week. We're going to sit you for the rest after halftime, which literally everyone was like, what?
Yeah.
So I'm going with Carson Wentz. Something just seems off in that entire offense. And yeah, I mean, aside from Ertz, I don't see things clicking for him. And maybe that bounces back, but I'm not seeing it right now.
I tend to agree with you. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit later on when we get to the receivers. But, yeah, this whole offense seems out of whack, and I can't place my finger on why it is. I mean, Golden Tate comes in and everything just goes to hell, but it's like it's not his doing. It's just Alshon's not getting it done. The offensive line's not getting it done. Carson Wentz, 0 fantasy points against the Saints last week. It's like it's just that weird thing we just can't place our finger on. It's like it's unusual.
And they're actually going up. I mean, the Redskins are completely decimated right now on the offensive side of the ball. So no one wants to talk about them in terms of fantasy. But their defense is still they're still a halfway decent defense, and a defense that can put pressure on the quarterback. And I mean, Wentz can move around a little bit. Dak was able to move around and be able to create some things against Washington's defense. But if you're comparing the Giants defense versus the Redskins defense, I got to give it to the Redskins.
Oh yeah, easily, because the Redskins have numerous pieces that are, young, up and coming. They got proven players, whether it's Norman, Swearinger, etc. The Giants, outside of Landon Collins and maybe Janoris Jenkins, they got a bunch of average to mediocre guys at best. So no, the defense is totally different. Both different ballparks.
And Landon Collins was amazing in that Giants-Eagles game. He was literally all over the place in that game. And the Eagles, they still didn't look good against that Giants defense, which is beatable in
so many ways.
So many ways. All right. So that's the guy I'm dropping down. Let's go on. Let's keep this negative flow of energy going. Mike, who are you dropping down?
Dropping down. I am dropping Trubisky down for this week, and we kind of touched on this earlier about his health. Is he going to be ready to go this week? The initial report was that Trubisky would have been good to go if the game was on Sunday. Now there's reports saying he's maybe to play. Some believe the Bears aren't letting on what's going on with his shoulder. But 6-1.5 doesn't matter. I'm not playing with the Giants this week. Everybody's back from the byes. He's out of my top 15 quarterbacks. We talked about the Giants defense. They're not very good, and yet they've done well against opposing quarterbacks, giving up just 16 points per game, and have held opposing QBs under 14 in 3 of the last 4 games. It's going to be a dogfight kind of a game. John's going to touch on it later on in terms of the scoring aspect. I don't like this. I'd rather play 15 other guys easily.
Yeah. And again, the Giants matchup just seems like such a juicy one, but you're right. There's so much uncertainty there. So,
plus Trubisky's very much hot and cold over his last 3 games. He scored under 15 points twice. So while the Bears are winning in spite of Trubisky at times, your fantasy team you get amazed by the 4 touchdown games, the 6 touchdown game against Tampa, but then you forget about the down lulls they have at times. So too much risk for me going into the playoffs, especially against on paper, good matchup.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's that on paper matchup that looks Looks so nice. What about you, John, with Matt Stafford?
Stafford's just not getting it done. He's, everybody, I think we talked about him before. Everybody had penciled him into being a top 5 quarterback this year. He had a lot of weapons, good offense. They drafted a running back that was going to take some pressure off him. Just as the year went on, he gets worse and worse and worse. And it's he's got the Rams this week, which is they have a pretty bad defense for all the players they have, which is crazy. But I don't think that the defensive line, he's going to be running for his life this week. I don't see anything in the future. The Rams, the Cardinals have a pretty good defense. Buffalo's got a good defense. Minnesota, Green Bay, he's got a tough schedule in front of him, and I don't see him improving at all with what he's got going on. So that's just why I'm moving him down, because I feel bad for him with that murderer's row of defenses he's got coming up.
You don't expect LeGarrette Blount to push the defense around, giving him, better passing opportunities?
Good one.
Yeah, he finds his way to get things done. I don't know how he goes place to place and just, bumbles his way through to get good fantasy points, but he chews up the clock and he gets some, he
falls in the end zone. That's how.
Yeah, and that's it. That's what he does. He finds a way to fall in the end zone and get his 12 to 18 fantasy points every week, and it's like he's so maddening.
Yeah. Stafford, I'm with you. Stafford, I dropped weeks ago. I think it's, like I said, the playoff schedule is horrible. They've taken away everything from his offensive line. Can't seem to pass block anymore. Tate, they trade away. Now Marvin Jones is on IR. Kerryon Johnson's dinged up. This whole Lions team just needs a reset, which is sad because they just hired a head coach, and Matt Patricia, probably 50-50 bet is going to be gone, which is disappointing.
I don't know about one season. I know they don't like him there, but you can't. I know it's the NFL, but one season with a lot of injuries, and that I don't know if that trade was his call or the front office's call, but
I'm sure it's the front office. But still, we've seen it. I mean, I don't think it'd be fair for him to go, but we've seen numerous times lame ducks one and gone. And,
he's come a long way. They hated him in camp, and they hated him to be in the season, and they seem to kind of have his back now. So whatever he did before, being a jerk, coming in there trying to be the Patriots part 2. It's kind of wore off now. He's a little bit more intimate with the guys. He's kind of a little more understanding, and he's probably not so tough anymore. I think the guys are kind of warmed up to him a little bit, but he's still he's got some work to do to kind of warm up the front office to say his plan will work here, which isn't really working too well right now.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's get a little positive then, but somebody just as many question marks, I would say. John, why don't you stick with it with infamous Jameis?
Well, I just traded for Jameis in my dynasty league, so I'm all in on him. The guy's young. He had some problems in the past, gets suspensions. Fitzpatrick had a couple good seasons, a couple good weeks in his absence. They've been flip-flopping back and forth. It's Jameis' spot to lose. The franchise doesn't know what they're going to do in the future with him. They have to find out if they want to keep him or not. His fantasy numbers are fantastic. He wins games. When he looks bad, he looks really bad. When he looks good, he can look really good. But even looking bad, sometimes he gets the job done. So I think that over the next couple of weeks, when he settles in, he's got tons of tools there. I think he's going to get the job done. They're going to stick around, and probably, I would imagine, if they're just sick of his antics and they don't want him there anymore, which I think is a huge possibility. I think the next couple of weeks could be very good for Jameis. He's especially us talking about fantasy football. He's a huge fantasy tool for people to use on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, and he's going up against the Panthers this week, so that's that's always healthy for some opposing teams, because it seems like the Panthers just can't stop anybody defensively yet. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead and tell us which QB are you propping up?
Sure, but real quick on Winston. Like John said, he's fantasy gold, even though the Bucs are a mess. But 3 of their next 4 games are against good or decent matchups, including this week against Carolina and then next week in New Orleans. So if any of you fantasy owners are worried about, can he keep the job, or we're going to have another QB switch at some point this year, just got to make it through these next 2 weeks. And then after that, you could probably find somebody else. But who I'm moving up, third time's a charm, right, guys? Because 2 weeks ago I said play Watson. He did horrible. Last week I said bench him. He played well. QB1, in fact. So third time's a charm.
That's better than well, Mike.
Texas on 8-game winning streak. Watson has scored 20 or more fantasy points 5 times during that span, including 3 of the last 4 games. Watson has done a good job pulling back the big weakness he has, which is the turnovers, the sacks. The Browns, while they won 2 straight games, defensively, they have struggled. Over the last 4 games, they've given up 9 passing touchdowns and an average of 22 fantasy points per game to opposing QBs. Cleveland's coming in a little cocky. I think Houston is determined to keep this win streak going. They got one of the easier schedules the rest of the way out, have aspirations for a first-round bye. Keep the ball rolling. Deshaun Watson's played well. Let's see it keep going.
He ran the offense very well last night against Monday against Tennessee. He did a very good job of keeping the ball moving. The defense helped put the offense in pretty good situations, but he did very good.
Yeah,
and when you have Hopkins, Kiki, and Lamar Miller taking 97-yard touches, like, by the way, I hate you, Lamar Miller. Anyways, moving on. My quarterbacks. I cheat. I always cheat. My bad. I'm going with 2 at the same time. I'm going both Dak and Drew. Not to give too much away for our preview into the upcoming week, but I expect the Thursday night Saints-Cowboys game to be a really good game. I expect it to be a shootout, not a shutout, a shootout, with both of them putting up really good numbers. I think the Saints defense isn't that formidable. And the Saints can score on anyone. So even though the Cowboys defense is, I think, one of the, upper echelon type of defenses, Drew Brees and that Saints team will be able to score. And even though the Saints, they're not horrible, they're not, bottom of the barrel defenses, but they're also not a great defense. They're not a top half defense from what I've been seeing. So I expect Dak and Drew to both be able to put up points. I'd say you could probably see both of them getting 3 touchdowns in this game. Probably 1 rushing, 1 for Dak, and 2 passing, and 3 through the air, if not more, for Drew.
Yeah, I agree. The Saints' strength of their defense is against the run, which means if Dallas has any chance in this game, Dak's going to have to make the ball, make things happen through the air. Cooper has played well, as we saw on Thanksgiving. Hopefully he can carry over some of that to this Thursday night's game, because otherwise this game's going to be a boring snooze fest by halftime.
Yeah, should be really unfortunate. But
yes.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into the running backs. I mentioned it briefly before with Lamar Miller getting the start. Lamar Miller getting the start means that he's improving that Ravens running game. And right now, Gus the Bus Edwards is the guy. I love the way that he runs, not because it's anything particularly amazing, but because it's straightforward, straight down, and it's perfect for the offense that they're running right now, where they're doing a quick read option, and he's either taking the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands and going straight forward and leaving a defensive end literally just sitting flat-footed and heading straight to the next level, and a lot of times running somebody over there to get a really nice gain. And if Alex Collins is out again, it just sets him up even more. And even if he's not out, if he's just a little bit limited, I think Gus, he's just looked so much better these past 2 weeks that you kind of have to. I think you gotta lean towards Gus over Alex Collins as the coaches, especially because they're both undrafted rookies or undrafted free agents. There's no loyalty to either of them. If Alex Collins was like a first or second round, even a third, fourth round draft pick, and Gus was undrafted, you could see that like, oh well, Alex Collins is a little bit higher in the pecking order, but they're both undrafted guys, and no kind of draft capital loyalty there. I expect Gus the Bus to have a really nice week, especially because the Ravens are going up against the Falcons, which is one of those teams that are their defense is just kind of horrible. So
totally agree. I kind of touch on that later when we go to the receiver position with Ridley, but yeah, as long as Lamar Jackson's still the QB, Gus the Bus is a thing. I like when it's a great matchup with Atlanta. They can't stop the run to save their life. Ride the bus until the tires fall off.
I don't like these undrafted free agents coming in, grabbing the load like Alex Collins did. That's Gus Edwards is doing the same thing as Alex Collins part 2. Until they find a real drafted running back that they could maybe get in the draft next year, or I don't know what Ty Montgomery's going to do, but until they find a drafted running back they pick up earlier in the early rounds and a proven commodity, these are just. It's all they are is just patches on the running back position.
Yeah, dynasty wise and redraft for next year, I think definitely Alex Collins. There's some recency bias here, but I don't want to touch him because I picked up Alex Collins in a couple of leagues, traded for him, or I got him really as a throw-in another trade. Thinking that he's the Ravens guy. And the thing was, he was the Ravens guy. He just wasn't the Ravens guy that he was at the end of last year. But if you can catch lightning in a bottle right now and get Gus Edwards now to close out your fantasy season, Alex Collins won me a championship last year. Gus Edwards could win me a new championship in a different league this year, partly because I didn't pick up Alex Collins and, got Gus off the waiver wires.
Yeah, I still like Alex Collins. I don't, I for some reason he's not getting it done right now, but, obviously he's not doing what he did last year, but he has potential. He's just not, they're seeing something that he's doing to tip off where the ball is going, where he's going, what the play is, everybody can read him now. It doesn't take long for coaches and players in the NFL to kind of figure out what somebody's doing, and they're figured out Alex Collins right now. They can see what something that he's giving up. They're all picking up on it and stopping any production that he's having.
Yeah, it's kind of like the little Tecmo Bowl. You picked the right play.
Yeah. One thing with Harbaugh coaching for his job, reportedly, don't expect the Ravens to change anything while they're on a winning streak. So expect Lamar and Gus to keep getting run. Collins has dealt a foot injury. He may or may not be active this week. He wasn't last week. Harbaugh's more concerned with keeping his job than he is with the team's long-term aspect. I like Gus Edwards down the stretch. The schedule is really good for him. But for 2019 and beyond, I honestly think Baltimore tears up the backfield and makes all kinds of changes in the offseason, depending upon what happens at head coach.
Yeah. All right. Mike, who are you propping up here?
I'll touch on this game later as we kind of went over, but I have Jalen Richard as my guy I'm propping up this week. Now, I have him and Doug Martin both in the flex range, but the Chiefs' defense is the friendliest against opposing backs, giving up 33 points a game. They've given up 41 or more in 2 of the last 3 games to opposing backs. The Raiders should be behind early in this game, which means plenty of check down, catches, and garbage time for Richard, like we kind of talked about earlier. Richard is averaging 5.7 targets per game and has at least 5 catches in just over half his games this year. The spread on this is 15 points. Oakland, like you said with the Giants earlier, they're very similar. They just want to tank, get the number 1 draft pick. This is the kind of game where you just look at Richard and say he can get 9 catches, 55 yards, and hopefully fall in the end zone.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not pretty, but, when you're scrapping at the bottom of the barrel, especially with all the injuries we've had with now Melvin Gordon, he might be on your waiver wire, and it's not a bad pickup.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a wide receiver, a running back to upside type of guy just because he catches the ball. And the Raiders are going to be playing from behind. So, yeah, I mean, I can see it. I mean, Doug Martin, he actually looked pretty decent against Baltimore, which I don't know how I feel saying that.
No.
I mean, he went 11 for 51 in a touchdown against the Baltimore defense, which is, I mean, Baltimore is always a strong defense. So I could see Doug Martin, doing better against Tampa Bay. But this game is so just undecided for me. Like, I can't figure out, is this going to be the game where the Bucks put up 45 points, or is this going to be the game where the Bucks drive, are able to move the ball for 500 yards and only put 3 points on the board? If that's the case, then Doug Martin, I think, has a good game. If the latter was the outcome, then I think Jalen Richard has a better game. So it's like I just don't know. But if I had to pick out of the two, I'd probably go Jalen Richard simply because of PPR.
I agree. And the game's going to be what's going to cause Richard to have the better game than Martin, because if this game is out of hand, they're going to pull Martin and play Richard. Now, if it's close for some reason, then Martin's going to keep the Chiefs off the field. But
I so wanted DeAndre Washington to be the running back in this team all the way since last year, beginning of last year. I had so much faith in this guy that this is going to be the future of the Oakland as soon as he got a shot. And he's not panning out. He's behind these two guys too. But I think it'll be a 50-50 split between Martin and Richard.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't want to watch that game. I mean, I will, but I really don't want to watch that game. It's not a game where it's like, oh, I'm super excited to watch Jalen Richard and Doug Martin go 50-50. But a game that I'm a little bit more interested in. John, why don't you go ahead and say which running back you're propping up?
Propping up, moving up. I'm moving on up to
the east side. A deluxe apartment in the sky? That's definitely not. That's so wrong, John.
Austin Eckler, just I think we talked about it before. Just out of circumstance, I'm moving him up. I think the carries will be 50-50, like we talked about before. I just think Eckler's going to do more of the carries that he has, and he's got a couple weeks to do it with. It's not a guy that's a 1 week fill-in. He should be here for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month. Probably like Mike said before, all the way to the playoffs. It's someone that this is a weekly show, but I think for the next couple of weeks we could say that Austin Eckler will be in the stat column. So it's somebody I'm propping up right now.
Yeah, you can't deny it. He's got to be your number one pickup if he's still out there, because he's gonna get work for it. I'm going at least 3 to 4 weeks, which most fantasy leagues are going to be ending in that 4th week. That's going to be the championship game. So, Austin Eckler, fire him up again, like Jalen Richard. Those PPR points are huge. Can't deny it. He's more like a 5th floor walk up on the, in like Hell's Kitchen versus a deluxe apartment on the east side. But it is what it is. Yeah, you're still in Manhattan. It still works.
Yes.
All right, you want to go with who you're dropping down, John? Also,
I'd love to. I'm dropping down Ito Smith. He's a guy that was getting 50-50 work. Doing his best to kind of not 50-50 work, but he was doing a lot more. He was getting some of the touchdown carries, getting the inside carries. He's been, as of lately, he's really not been showing. He's getting a couple opportunities, but not doing anything with them. Freeman's not, a spectacular back either right now. Coleman, but Ito Smith is just not he's not getting it done with the opportunities he has. And on top of that, his opportunities are going down. He was up to 7, 10, 11. I think at one point in time he had 11 carries a couple games in a row, but he's only getting a couple, not getting anything done with it. It's someone that I thought was going to be able to share the 50-50 split when Freeman went down, but he's kind of falling off the radar right now.
Yeah, I agree. This Atlanta backfield has just been underachieving across the board. Ito's kind of supposed to take over that Freeman in between the tackles, goal line work, and surprisingly, the Falcons are actually throwing in the red zone, which is impressive. So, at the very least, you're moving him to the bench and not trusting him, or you're dropping him in situations where you need handcuffs or whatever. But unless you're the Tevin Coleman owner and you want to handcuff him in case, knock on wood, there's another injury in that Falcons backfield, you can't trust him to play him.
No, I thought he would be coming and he'd be the Freeman. I think when this season's over with, and Coleman's possibly going in free agency, I'm not sure what'll happen with him and Freeman. They're both kind of close to the same kind of back, so I don't know what the story's going to be next year. But we'll see.
Freeman has me a little nervous because of injuries, but that whole situation's really up in the air. That's going to be a very, very interesting situation to follow, especially through the offseason.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on now. We're going to do mine and Mike's together because, Mike, you're dropping down Marlon Mack, and I'm dropping down just all of the Colts running backs. So you want to start specifically about Marlon Mack, and you'll probably talk about why I'm dropping down all of them.
I'm going to guess it's because of the matchup like we went over earlier with Jacksonville being the number 2.
That's it. Done. All right, let's move on.
It's pretty much that combined with the concussion concerns and the fact that Luck had a field day picking apart the Jaguars secondary 2 weeks ago. None of these running backs should be played this week. Moving on.
Yeah. All right. Wide receivers. Let's jump into some wide receivers you should play then. We're going to start off with the one that I think is going to take the most time because I just completely am not sure about it. So, Mike, since I cut you off short with who your running backs you're dropping with, what wide receiver are you propping up, and do tell why?
This makes absolutely no bleeping logical sense, but this is totally a gut play. Golden Tate, and here's why. Every time the Eagles and the Redskins play on Monday night, something wacky happens. You guys remember, 8 or 9 years ago now, the Redskins traded for McNabb, gave him this big 6-year contract despite he was in his mid to late 30s. And then Monday night against the Eagles, Michael Vick goes absolutely bonkers. McNabb looks like a total bum, and the Redskins are fools. Well, that's just one of the examples that happens when these two teams play on Monday night. And I think we're going to see Tate break out. Tate has totally struggled. Only 20 fantasy points in the 3 games since coming over from Philly. Yet the Redskins are the 9th friendliest team against opposing receivers, giving up 39 points a game. Fabian Monroe in the nickel spot has had his blunders the last couple of weeks, second-year player. Redskins giving up 44 more fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games to opposing receivers. The winner of this game is now in second place in the NFC East. And depending upon what happens to that Dallas-New Orleans game, they could be only a game back of first place. Philly, I think, has a little bit of hope in terms of getting their act together and maybe pushing Dallas for the division. Washington is already half on IR, the other half thinking about vacation in January. I just think if we're ever going to see Philly's offense get it together this year, it has to happen this week.
Yeah, it's pretty bold.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't see it happening, but I get the gut play aspect of it, and I actually kind of like it. So
logically, it makes no sense whatsoever. But every time the Redskins and the Eagles play, something wacky tends to happen. So who knows?
I mean, you did have to go back 8 years to make your argument.
Well, they don't play on Monday night every year, Seth.
That's awesome.
Just every time the Redskins are on national TV, it seems like they just totally screw up and let the other team's most unknown player or most in a funk player just all of a sudden snap out of it and play phenomenal. So for fantasy owners, hopefully good fortune this happens.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's not Golden Tate, maybe it's somebody else, but hey, more power to you. Way to be out there.
And if I'm wrong, it's not the first time, won't be the last. So, you know.
All right. Let's go ahead. John and I are talking about the same guy, and I cheated, so it's like half of my guys. So yeah, and I'm a cheater. Sorry. Don't worry, I cheated with the tight ends also.
It's also one guy.
Every week I cheat. I think I'd win even more fantasy then. But even still, John, why don't you go ahead and start us off with DJ Moore? You're propping him up. I'm propping him up. Why are you propping up DJ Moore?
You know, I think he's the best receiver in this draft class. He's the season started. I was expecting right after the week 4 bye for him to kind of show out. And he didn't do so for a couple of weeks. Within the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's really been stepping it up. They're targeting him. Cam's targeting him more. He's doing more. He's an awesome guy a great receiver at catching the ball and making things happen after the ball's in his hand. Cam's trusting him more. He's doing more with the trusted throws. I think it's just what the doctor ordered this week when they're playing Tampa Bay's defense. I think the train's going to just keep rolling at this point in time. It's a fantastic situation for him to be in. I love it. Curtis Samuel's taken some, a couple of catches, and Torrey Smith's a little bit injured lately, so DJ Moore is taking advantage of this situation. And we're seeing a little bit less and less of Greg Olsen, even though he's getting his red zone touchdown almost every week. But I think DJ Moore is by far a shining star from here on out.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. DJ Moore was one of my top guys as a wide receiver that I was looking at coming out of this draft. He literally just excelled in everything. He excelled in the metrics. He excelled on tape. He excelled on, his stats from college, all the kind of wonky metrics that people put together. He was just tops in all of them.
He also very well fits this offense where they have those kind of hybrid receiver running backs with MCM or CMC, Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore. So it's a great fit for this offense with Funchess being dinged and Torrey Smith out in the last couple of games. He's really stepped into that number one role. I like Moore and Samuels a lot this week. Tampa Bay secondary, we know we picked on all year long, is absolute trash. This is a game where you play both in DFS and you just watch the money come in.
Yeah, and that big rip on DJ Moore was that he wasn't so much of a great route runner, that he was more of a kind of a, I don't want to say impromptu, but he made things happen. And what our offense can you go to that just things just happen? Greg Olsen made a living on making things happen by running back and forth, waiting for Cam to decide to throw the ball. And DJ Moore is kind of getting open, and Cam knows where to find him at. They're on the same page now, and this is exactly what he needed. He fits perfect in this offense.
Yep. And I'm just going to tag on, you mentioned him a little bit already, Curtis Samuels. I'm just hanging him on this one also, partly because the matchup is so good, partly because they're becoming the 1 and 2 wide receivers in this offense because Funchess is hurt, because Torrey Smith is hurt, because Greg Olsen, yes, he's getting his, 1 catch for 1 yard for 1 touchdown. Excellent efficiency there, but these two guys, one, they're just electric, and two, they are the future of this Carolina team. I don't think you're going to see Funchess, 6'5", 200 whatever pounds. Like he's like Kelvin Benjamin all over again, just not quite as awful. Fat. Chubby wubby.
Yeah.
DJ Moore, Curtis Samuels, they can move, and that's what's so amazing about this Carolina offense, and just smart coaching. You have incredibly fast, active players. That is all you need to do is get them into space. So what do? You get them into space and let them take care of business. That's why DJ Moore is having better and better games. That's why Curtis Samuel you know, his games are a little more hit and miss. It's a little more touchdown dependent. But he has all of a sudden it's like, oh damn, that was one amazing play he just put on. That's why, you know, CMC's last game was just incredible. He had 100 yards receiving and rushing. So yeah, basically the whole Carolina offense is being propped up right now, but my wide receivers, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuels. You ready to drop some guys down?
Yeah, let's get to the bed.
Mike, go ahead and hit it.
So I have screwed up on Watson the last couple of weeks, and I've really been on point. I said sit him 2 weeks ago. Last week I said play him. And versus Saints, he finishes the wide receiver 10 for the week, 21 points. However, I got him outside my top 40 receivers this week because of the matchup. Ravens are the third toughest team against receivers, giving up just under 30 points a game. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Gus Edwards before. Since Lamar Jackson has taken over, the Ravens are averaging 36 minutes in time of possession per game and have 48 team rushes a game. They are going to control the clock against this terrible Falcons run defense, limit the number of possessions Matt Ryan and that Falcons offense get, and we've seen Ridley struggle when he goes up against good corners between Jimmy Smith and Marlon Humphreys. I don't think he's going to get free. Expect a high target game for Julio and everybody else to struggle. I just don't like the Falcons outside of Julio this week.
Yeah, I can see it.
He's getting all the action right now. That's you can't deny it. That's where the ball's going. Running backs aren't doing it. Matt Ryan's got to throw to somebody, and Julio's the man. He's kind of breaking out lately.
Yeah,
I mean, Calvin Ridley could have that blow-up game that you're just not expecting, but that's so difficult to call that. So difficult.
Especially when the matchup's not pretty. His two best games have been against the Saints this year, and Baltimore's defense is the total opposite.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, so we're dropping down similar guys here. John and I again, which is kind of funny that we both propped up similar guys and dropping down similar guys. John, why don't you go first with who you're dropping down?
Sure. I am dropping down Marquez Valdes-Scantling. For a while there, he looked like he was moving up the depth chart. Like he had the faith of Aaron Rodgers. He knew where to be. Aaron Rodgers could kind of throw up the jump ball in tough situations, and he'd be there. He had lightning speed down the field, burning guys. And for some reason, this offense is just not clicking anywhere besides Davante Adams. It's just the Davante Adams show lately. Randall Cobb's been hurt. Economius St. Brown is coming in spot action. Jamon Moore, a couple plays. And now they got Jay Kumerow back. My son's looking at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and that's where this Kumerow guy's from. And he's a stud. He got hurt. He had a really good preseason, got hurt right before the regular season started. But it's Jay Kumerow. Watch out for him in the future. But everybody's going to be taking a little bit, 1 and 2 and maybe 3 catches for minimal yards, minus Davante Adams in this offense. So I'm dropping down Valdes-Scantling just for a week or so. I think when Rodgers figures out where he's going, I think he'll go back to Scanlon, who was showing signs of being a really good, very good progressing as a rookie receiver.
Yeah, I think his progress is, I think he's going to progress and become better and better. But I do agree. I think there's, and I'm going to jump into the guy that I'm dropping down as well, because I'm dropping down Davante Adams. I think there's something wrong with this Packers offense, which is it's going to affect MVS. It's going to affect Davante Adams. I literally have on the show notes Wentz or Rodgers, and I didn't talk about dropping down Rodgers during the quarterbacks. But I mean, I think I could have easily dropped them down just by the fact that they don't look like the Packers right now. And literally people are talking about the Packers running the table and having a playoff shot. And yes, Aaron Rodgers has historically been a phenomenal quarterback. But the fact of the matter is he has only 4 games over 20 fantasy points. over 20 fantasy points is like the bare minimum to be a QB1. And yes, fantasy points and wins in real life don't line up exactly, but there is some correlation there. And if you look at Davante Adams, Davante Adams has only 2 games above 20 points. And same thing with wide receivers. You need a minimum of 20 points typically to be a wide receiver 1, especially in a full point PPR.
And Davante Adams, 2 games over 20 points were stellar, though. He was on fire.
Well, his 2 games over 20 points were against San Francisco and Detroit. And those were in week 5 and week 6. We're going into week 13, and his most recent games, he had 12 points, 16 points, 17 points. Like he's doing all right for you, but you need Davante Adams to score like Thielen 26 points, Julio Jones 23. Stephen Diggs 22. Keenan Allen 20. Like that's just from this last week of guys drafted in the same round that were all wide receiver 1s. You drafted Davante Adams to be your wide receiver 1, and he's just not putting up those numbers that you would expect from him. And yes, his numbers for this past week should have been better, because there was a missed throw in the end zone that he didn't catch, and it was a bad throw and a bad attempt at a catch, and so it should have been better. But that to me is just even more evidence that this offense is not where it's supposed to be.
No, I and everybody thought that as soon as Aaron Rodgers' knee healed up and he got to be a little bit better, he'd be slinging the ball all over the place, running, making the offense better, and it's gotten worse. I understand that, but I disagree with the Adams. I think that he is going to be he is the undisputed number one on Green Bay. The rest of them is just a big murky puddle of, switching. It's like a carousel of who do I throw the ball to 1 or 2 times a game.
Oh yeah, he'll be the number 1 on Green Bay. Part of the problem with this coming week, though, is he's going to be up against Patrick Peterson and the Cardinals defense. The Cardinals defense, we're not going to talk about that. But Patrick Peterson is going to be lined up against Davante Adams a lot. And he's honestly, out of the entire Cardinals team, he's kind of the shining star of that entire team. He's the one guy that is going to show up every single day, do his job, and do it very, very well. And that's his job, is to shut down the other team's wide receiver 1.
Well, you're right about.
Go ahead, John. What are you going to say?
You are 100% right about that. That's going to be a tough matchup this week. I'll give you that much for the weekly argument. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I have Davante Adams in a couple of leagues. I'm not going to sit Davante Adams, but I'm going to be pissed off because he's supposed to be my wide receiver 1, or in a dynasty league, he's my wide receiver 2, which makes me feel a little bit better. But he's been putting up wide receiver 2, borderline wide receiver, 3 numbers. And that's not what you drafted him for. And right now, this week, he's probably going to be definitely a wide receiver 2.
Yeah. No, I don't know about wide receiver 2. Seth, I think you looked up the wrong numbers there when you're talking about over 20. In standard, you're right. He only has 2 such games. In PPR, he's got 5 over 20. I agree with what you guys are saying. This whole Packers offense seems out of whack and weird. But I don't want to move down Adams. This week, a couple of spots, because like he said, he's going to get the Patrick Peterson treatment, and that's just no fun whatsoever. Although he has played relatively well against upper echelon corners. Against Xavier Rhodes last week, he got 18 PPR points. But the playoff schedule is very nice. Atlanta, Chicago, and then the Jets. And 2 of those teams just cannot cover receivers worth a damn.
Yeah. So, and thank you for that correction. I did leave it in standard scoring there. But even still, with those games, he's still not not what you want from your wide receiver one. Like Adam Thielen is the wide receiver one. Like he's right now doing amazing. He's 100 yards like every single game, just about. So it's hard to like compare him to him. But you drafted Adam Thielen in maybe the second. If he fell really far, the third round. Like at this point, you're like,
I got him in a couple leagues in the fourth, either.
Yeah, like
early fourth, but yeah.
I mean, to even for Davante Adams to even have these games in, you know, some of them like just not good. Like he's 16, 17, 16, 18. Yeah, he has a handful of games, 20, 21. Those are borderline wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 games. And then he has his 3 where he's definite wide receiver 1 numbers. It's tough, but then you are 100% correct. I had the standard ones. I was cheating a little bit. Look the standard instead of PPR.
I agree with what you're saying. Thielen and Tyreek Hill, the 2 receivers ahead of him in terms of average points per games in PPR, they offer much more upside. I'm with John though about MVS. I've actually dropped him in a couple leagues. I don't want anything to do with the Packers offense outside of obviously Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, and Adams. It's wacky what's going on in Green Bay, and I don't know if this is something that they can fix this year or not. Hopefully they can run the table and at least make the playoffs interesting, see if they can get in or not. But yeah, honestly, I would not be surprised if Arizona pulls the upset this week.
Yeah, they're trying to force the run game on people, and that's fine and all. But if you're going to force the run game, you got to do some play action and get the receivers some balls, not just one guy all the time either.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to make it very clear. I'm not saying Davante Adams is bad in any sense. I'm just saying I especially for this coming week, I'm just not happy with what he's going to put up. I think it's going to be very bad.
Temper your expectations against Peterson, especially if the Cardinals play a lot of man coverage, and Rodgers is going to have to look elsewhere. I totally agree.
Yep. And from there, I think we hit everybody in terms of wide receivers. So let's go ahead and jump over into tight ends. And who wants to pick this one up? I kind of want to hear John's prop up first, just because it's funny to me.
Let's hear about Hey Arnold.
Hey Arnold.
I was going Roseanne's show.
Just someone I think is taking over the tight end role in New Orleans. I think he'll be able to get open, get a couple. When there's been a history of tight ends in New Orleans, even though I'm not a huge fan of the Saints offense, they've always kind of spread the ball around so much. There's never been a super awesome wide receiver anywhere across the board. This year's been great with why am I number 1 receiver in New Orleans? Why am I
Michael Thomas?
Michael Thomas down. This year has been great with Michael Thomas, but in the history of Drew Brees' offense, he's been just a guy you never could have a number 1 receiver on that team because he spread the ball around so much. But tight ends with Jimmy Graham and a couple other guys, tight ends he kind of used about the same as everybody else, 4, 5, 6 targets, and I'm happy with that kind of production from a tight end, especially this year. I'm expecting a constant flow of targets at that position for him. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with just getting pelleted 4 or 5 receptions a season. Everybody else is gone. So if I can get 4 for 50, maybe a touchdown every couple of weeks, that's someone I'm taking over. He seems to have won the battle over there, or by default become the number 1 tight end over there.
Play any Saint that you have always when you have Drew Brees throwing the ball, and just hope that he's the next Keith Kirkwood or Dan Arnold or Jimmy Joe Bob we just signed from the street and gonna score us touchdown Smith. I mean,
think Ben Watson's kind of slowly going to the wayside now. I think that this is a job that is going to be won and starting to slowly take over by Dan Arnold. That's just what I feel. So starting this week, a couple more catches as it goes on. Hopefully, it'll be a couple more and a couple more and a couple more, and it'll be the Dan Arnold show in the future for New Orleans.
I don't know if he's going to be much of anything the rest of the year. It's a nice speculative ad in Dynasty. Just you're right. New Orleans hasn't had a real dominant tight end since Jimmy Graham was traded, and maybe this guy turns into the next, unknown tight end who turns into something. Antonio Gates on a poor man's version, maybe. But yeah, I'm not talking myself into it. Sorry, I'm off.
Yeah, I'm probably not picking him up unless like there's just nothing out there for tight end. Like, would I pick him up over Matt Lacoste in Denver?
Yup.
No.
No?
No? Oh, I would.
No.
Okay. Interesting. Well, who are you propping up there? Who are you propping up, Mike?
Well, it was going to be Mr. Lacrosse, as I like to call him, but I figured that'd be a name nobody ever heard of. So I went a little more obvious choice than Cameron Brake. First game without O.J. Howard, he scored just under 12 fantasy points, his highest since week 4, finishing the week outside the top 12, just barely at 13 by like 1.5. But Panthers, friendliest team against tight ends, giving up just under 18 a game. They've given up almost 20 and 5 in the last 7 games, including 26 to the Bucs in week 9. Outside those elite, 4 or 5 guys we always talk about every week, Ertz, Kelsey, Kittle, whatnot, I think Brate's a must play this week.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I didn't want to go with him because I figured he'd be the de facto number 1 with no competition. I was trying to find something a little deeper. It was either Chris Herndon or Arnold on my radar this week. So those are my 2 lookalikes or my 2 look aheads.
Well, speaking of Herndon, he's my guy I'm actually moving down. So, John, you and I are just not on the same page at all this week.
Tight ends are hard. They're very hard to even
to figure out.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Herndon. He's played well. He scored 10 or more points in 4 of his last 6 games, including a career high 7 catches last week, which resulted in just under 13 PPR fantasy points. But the matchup this week makes me want to put him back on the waiver wire. They're going against the tight ends. They're the toughest team against tight ends, giving up just under 7.5 points per game. They haven't allowed a tight end score a touchdown all year long, and the only tight end they've given up more than 10.5 fantasy points to this season was Zach Ertz, and we could all agree that Chris Herndon is not even 1/10 of what Zach Ertz is. So I like him in terms of what he means going forward the rest of this year and in Dynasty. I just don't like this week.
Yeah, Tennessee's tough. Number 1.
Yeah,
and let's be honest, it's especially this year and most years, it's tough to trust any Jet player.
Oh yeah,
like it's kind of like the Browns historically. Like you get a 1 or 2 Browns where it's like, okay, we're throwing them in. Duke Johnson last year, yeah, let's let it ride. But for the most part, it's real tough to trust any Jet because just the whole team is so mismanaged. So I can definitely see the Chris Herndon thing. Also with Sam Darnold not being necessarily the most accurate of quarterbacks, it's hard to say whether or not Herndon's going to get enough kind of work of catchable balls that he can actually do something with. So,
yeah, well, is he going? He's going to play this week?
It don't look like it.
No, again, his foot's still like he hasn't recovered from that foot situation yet. They need to get him in the field.
I thought he was starting to feel a little bit better. We'll have to look into the injury news again and see if he's feeling a little bit better. But
they got Josh McCown still penciled in, I think.
And who are you dropping down there, Mike? Sorry, John.
Let me get to my.
The suspense is killing us, John.
I know. What's funny is it's somebody that I literally have cut in like two leagues. Also, I'm spoiling it for you. It's Ricky Seals.
Seals Jones.
I know he's made me a fool and too bad for you, Ricky. You're going to the bench, Ricky. Sorry, you're not even going to the bench. You're going to the waiver wire, Ricky. You're going back in the pool.
He's good because he is a bad. I mean, he's got tons of air yards all year long, just not doing anything with it. Recently he's gotten worse with a couple less targets, but he's somebody that I thought, man, this guy has to pan out because he's getting so many passes. He's getting open. He's wide against the Bears. He had a big touchdown, wide open in the middle of the field. He's not making the best of the opportunities he has, and every week you're expecting something from him, and he's getting less and less. Now you're expecting maybe 1 or 2 catches a week for 5 or 6 targets, but he's not. Rosen's just missing him. He's not catching anything. A couple balls off his fingertips. He's not in the right position. For someone who had a lot of hype coming in, or after the first couple of weeks, some hype because of all the targets, he's not producing.
Yeah, and I think Byron Leftwich had us all fooled, thinking that he was going to, kind of turn around this Cardinals offense, and I wanted to believe it. I was getting there in terms of believing it, and then it's the Cardinals. 2018 Cardinals. They're just not good.
Yeah, I was looking up some Sam Darnold stuff, so sorry about the delay there, guys.
That's all right. I'm gonna super fast do my tight ends. My tight end is a tight end that I've talked about a whole bunch, but I'm sticking with him, and he can't really go up much higher than he is right now. But I think you need to fire him up on all cylinders. Throw a little turbo boost into the engine also. Eric Ebron.
God, I hate hearing his name.
Oh,
it's something I love it.
It makes me feel so good.
This Jack Doyle conversation from before the season has just haunted me all year long.
Yeah, and that's part of it, is that Jack Doyle is now gone to IR again. Hopefully everything's fine with his kidney, because that just sounds terrible. But him and T.Y. Hilton are now basically the only pass catchers on that offense. Like, who else are they going to throw the ball to? Zach Pascal,
Mo Alley-Cox.
Mo Alley-Cox, Eric Swap.
He's on IR.
Is he on IR too? Like,
it's Chester Rogers, Dontrell Pittman, Mo Alley-Cox, your local janitor. Take your pick. It's just all trash.
Like, they're gonna hope the Saints cut a tight end so that they can pick a tight end up, just so that they can keep 3 tight ends in the rotation randomly to get a touchdown every now and then. So yeah, Eric Ebron, he's the guy. He's hopefully you got him super cheap early on in the season, and you kept him this entire way. And in a season when you have Ertz, you have Kittle, you have who am I leaving off? Kelsey. Gronk is coming back a little bit, but basically you have 3 tight ends at the very top, possibly a 4th with Gronkowski, and Ebron is the 5th. You start those guys every single week. And my drop for the week is basically everyone else. It's all just
Ebron or bust for Seth. That's it.
And well, it's those 5 guys. It's Ertz, it's Ebron, it's Gronk, it's Kittle, it's Kelsey,
it's Arnold, RJ, RSJ.
No. All everybody else it's just a crapshoot. If you don't have one of those top 5. You play roulette, just
I don't know about roulette, but you're definitely taking a downgrade there. Although I do really like Greg Olsen this week going against Tampa. I actually have him ahead of Ebron, but just for the week. But I agree with you. Those are the 5 quote unquote elite tight ends. And then after that, you're talking about guys who you're hoping for a touchdown or bust in most cases.
Yeah. And And Ebron shows he gets those touchdowns. So
Ebron just got traded in my dynasty league today. It was Ebron, Peyton Barber, and a 5th-round pick for a 1st-round pick next year's draft.
Ooh.
That's a little steep.
That's way too steep.
I feel like that Ebron is worth more than a 1st, right? Am I right, guys? Am I right?
No, stop drinking stuff.
I feel like the only reason he's doing this is because the whole team's injured besides him, and he's looking like a star. But he's like, I feel like I'm a baby. My parents are feeding me all the good stuff that I have to eat, even though I hate eating it. This is Eric Ebron. I'm eating the broccoli and the carrots and all the rest of the stuff that tastes horrible, but I'm getting it shoved down my throat, and it's Ebron, and it makes me sick. But it's working, you know.
Well, I think Seth and I could talk about Ebron for another 2-3 hours. Seth, what do you think?
No,
he's the best. Done. Moving on.
Moving on.
Yeah. All right. Let's quickly jump into looking forward to next week. Thank God, no more buys. It's finally all over, which means, though, that this is also coming close to the end of the regular fantasy season. So week 13, I'm firing up the Thursday night game, which I feel really, weird about because Thursday night games are so terrible, and I feel like I've picked a lot of Thursday night games. But maybe that just means that Thursday night they're actually putting on some halfway decent teams. But this Thursday you have the Saints Cowboys. I mentioned a little bit earlier, I expect this game to be a shootout. And I've mentioned it plenty of times. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'm going to be watching this game no matter what. But I actually think there's a lot of really fun things to watch in this game. Can Zeke run against the Saints D? Can Dak and Cooper kind of keep their little mojo going? And Drew Brees is just amazing, and Michael Thomas is great, and Drew Brees is going to find Michael Thomas or the plethora of randos that he was like at the parking lot. Hey, who wants to play some football today? You? All right, somebody get this guy a helmet. Go out there, catch touchdowns. So yeah, and let's not forget, they have Ingram, Kamara. So this game, I'm going to be disappointed if this game finishes with less than 6, 7, 8 combined touchdowns.
There's a lot on the line with this game for both teams. The Saints in terms of home field advantage throughout the playoffs, Dallas in terms of taking a bigger hold on the division lead. So it's definitely going to be an interesting game from all kinds of aspects. I don't know if we're going to get 7 or 8 touchdowns, but this game should end in somewhere in the 30s for both teams if we get lucky.
New Orleans minus 7.5. What do you think?
If they can run the ball, Dallas, I'll take Dallas in the points. If they just can't run the ball and force Dak to start 45, 50 times, I'll take New Orleans despite the points.
Yeah, I was going to go Cowboys in the points. If it's just straight up, even though my heart wants to say Cowboys, realistically speaking, I think the Saints win it. I think the Cowboys keep it close, though. So if you said like 7.5, I would easily say Cowboys plus 7.5.
Well, that's what the line's at, 7.5.
That's exactly 7.5.
Exactly 7.5.
Cowboys, put money on it. Bet your house on it. Don't blame me if you lose. Disclaimer:
exactly.
Don't take any of my bets.
They can run the ball and at least somewhat slow down New Orleans. I actually think Dallas has a chance to win outright. But you're talking 70-30 at best odds. It's New Orleans going to win this thing, more than likely.
All right. John, which game are you excited for watching?
I'm excited to watch the Bears-Giants. I'm as a Dolphins fan, my second favorite team is the Bears. And I have Kyle Aletta in my dynasty league, so I'm hoping he gets to start this week. They can finally sit down Manning. But
that worked well for him last year.
Yeah, really well.
The real situation is Mitch Trubisky, Mr. Biscuit. See if he's ready to go this week or not. That's going to determine a lot. It's a pick 'em right now. I mean, there's no line on it at all because of the injury implications. But I want to see the Bears really hammer the Giants this week and keep rolling forward with their lock on the division. So this means a lot to me to watch the Bears roll forward, and just not that I'm expecting Kyle Letta to be the next Dan Marino or nothing, but it's nice to pick up pieces on Dynasty League and have them, start at least get a shot to see what you got in there before at the end of the season.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the Bears just annihilating the Giants.
And everybody hates the Giants.
Yeah, a little bit. Which doesn't work for me living in New York and in the New York City area. So, but yeah, no Giants live here. So go Bears. The Bears.
I should be a Giants fan because a kid we grew up with, David Deal, played for the Giants for about 12 years. He's their family, friend of the family. He's a good dude. But I just can't. I hate everything about New York. So
everything,
including you guys.
And Mike, what are you looking at?
Well, usually I go through and plug my weekly rankings to start the hit, but you guys by now have to know where they're at. They're on Twitter at MikeSports22 in case you didn't know. I'm taking a gambling aspect this week in terms of the Chiefs-Raiders game. We talked about the spread being 15 points, and I think this game could be a potential trap game. Now, before you go out and bet the Raiders outright, I don't think that's going to happen. But we saw what happened with Kansas City a few weeks ago against Arizona right before the big game against the Rams. They were 17.5-point favorites, I believe, and they only won by 12, and it was kind of a fluky, not a runaway game like we all expected. The Chiefs schedule the rest of the year at the Raiders this week, Ravens, Chargers, at Seahawks, Raiders to close the year out. Between the two Raiders games, they got three teams who are going to be in the playoffs or fighting for playoff positioning. This is a critical stretch for the Chiefs in terms of if they want to keep home field advantage away from the Patriots, which I think is a must if they're going to actually make it to the Super Bowl. So, by all means, not telling you to go bet the Rams plus 15, or I'm sorry, the Raiders plus 15, but it's tempting because I think this game could easily end in a 10 or 11-point game. Worst case, hell, it may even be a 5 or 6-point game if Kansas City's got their minds thinking about that critical 3-game stretch coming up.
Yeah, interdivision home dogs is a horrible bet. That's for some reason, that never really works out when you got a powerhouse going in a shitty team. You go in their house favored by tons. It never really works out that way.
Especially when you don't expect them to do anything because you think they're totally just blowing the season away. It's week 13. They're looking at the draft, and it's like, oh, crap, they caught us by surprise. We actually have to play serious in the fourth quarter.
You nailed it. It's a trap game, I think. Exactly.
Yeah, this seems so trappy, but I also feel like the Chiefs are kind of like modern day NBA, where it's like, we don't need to play till the fourth quarter anyways. Oh wait, they're actually playing hard. Oh yeah, don't worry, we'll still win in the fourth quarter.
This has backdoor cover written all over it.
Yeah,
I'm with John. Yeah,
I can totally see that in terms of betting lines. I can't imagine a way though that the Chiefs walk out of they board the plane in Oakland going, I can't believe we lost that game. Are we sure we lost it? I can't see that.
I don't see them losing it either. I just think the spread is ridiculous given the trap game scenario. But yeah, the Chiefs should be in a straight up pick 'em. The Chiefs should be 100% bet on. It's just the spread makes me worry that they think ahead, and then Oakland sneaks in a last minute, touchdown or whatever, and it gets under to 10 or 11. You're screwed. So
we may be thinking too much, and the Chiefs may roll in there and just score 42 points and just destroy the Raiders too. But
probably,
I mean, isn't that like the Chiefs' MO is just like, we're gonna put up 50.
Yeah, they sure the hell could do it.
Yeah, it's kind of like Alabama football, but for the NFL version.
Yeah.
We don't need the fourth quarter. We'll beat you in 3.
Yeah. and with that, it is now our ending fourth quarter. So, fellas, say one more time where everybody can find you.
I'll go ahead and go first. You guys can find me on Twitter at MikeSports22. All kinds of content coming out for you guys. Make sure you follow Seth and John, the rest of the FFD 260 family. Any questions, by all means, hit any of us up. We'll be happy to help.
Yes, you can find me, John McGlynn, at meathead_75. You can find me, the FF Dynasty 260. A lot of good content on the site. Look it up. You'll enjoy it. And all you, Seth.
Yeah, and I am the At Home Dad. You can hit me up on Twitter at the FF at Home Dad. Sorry, FF the At Home Dad. Gotta get my own name right, man.
John's drank. Seth, you drank too much tonight.
I know, so much. Gotta go teach the kiddies of America tomorrow morning. With that being said, good night, everybody. Have fun. Good luck as you make your push towards the playoffs. See you in a week.
See you next week, guys.
Thanks for listening, everyone.